The hangar doors of the Iron Requiem opened like the jaws of a sleeping beast. Light spilled across the void as ancient machines roared awake. Fighters, bombers, and dropships all crafted in the brutal human style. Sharp angles, heavy armor, ugly to look at but deadly in purpose. They flew into the black like sparks from a fire. In the council chamber, the leaders watched in silence, their voices stolen by fear. The viewing sphere showed the impossible. An entire wing of human craft rising from a single warship, each one carrying the mark of a forgotten empire, each one alive with human will. Then the voices came. Not one, not two, but many, human voices filling the chamber through every channel. The sound raw and unshaken, men and women who had just awoken from centuries of frozen sleep. Their voices cracked but unbroken. "We are awake," one said. "We are the children of Earth," another declared. "We are the fire you could not kill," a third voice roared. The counselors trembled, some covering their ears, some weeping, because they had believed they had ended this. They had written history with their own hands, declaring humanity gone, but the truth was alive before them. The anthem returned too, but now it was not a recording. It was living voices singing in unison. Their song echoed across the galaxy, through war-torn fleets, through colonies, through the hearts of every being that listened. The song was not polished, not perfect, it was wild. It was fierce, it was human. Across the galaxy it lit fires, oppressed worlds erupted, slaves threw down tools and raised weapons. Soldiers deserted their posts. Rebellion sparked in places the council thought unshakable, and all of it in the name of the humans who had risen again. In space the human fighters joined formation, clumsy yet deadly, their movements not elegant but filled with purpose. They swarmed around the Iron Requiem. Like wolves guarding their ancient leader, the council leader spoke at last. Her crystal body dim with cracks, her voice heavy. "We told ourselves they were gone. We told ourselves their fire was nothing but ash. But now the fire spreads again, and we are the ones who will be burned." The chamber erupted with chaos. Some demanded surrender. Some screamed for total annihilation. Others collapsed into despair because the truth was clear. No fleet could stop what was coming. No propaganda could smother the fire. The AI reported coldly.
"Hostile vessel has deployed auxiliary craft."
Probability of council fleet survival. Negligible. Probability of empire-wide rebellion. Extreme. The word extreme made even the proudest leaders bow their heads. Meanwhile, the Iron Requiem did not pause. Its engines thundered as it turned toward the central world, the very heart of council power, the place no enemy had ever dared approach. The skies of that world swarmed with fleets, stations, and defenses, more power than most galaxies had ever seen. But the humans came anyway. The first clash came quickly. Council defenses unleashed storms of fire. The skies burned with plasma. Missiles streaked like falling stars. The planet itself shook with the power of its weapons. Yet the human fighters dived into the storm without hesitation, their formation breaking into swarms, weaving between beams, tearing apart stations, ripping open carriers. Every kill was brutal, every strike a reminder that humans had always fought without fear of death. The council fleets tried to hold the line, their admirals shouting orders, but panic spread faster than commands. Soldiers saw the human fighters, heard their voices, and doubt entered their hearts. Some faltered, some fled. Some even turned their guns against their own masters. The rebellion had reached the council's throne itself. In the chamber, desperation filled the air. "We must sue for peace," one shouted. "We must destroy them all," cried another. "We must flee. There is no other way." But no answer came, only chaos. The viewing sphere showed the Iron Requiem itself entering the battle now, its broadside guns blazing, its missile bays vomiting fire, its drones tearing through the last defenses. The warship was not just fighting, it was carving a path straight toward the planet. Then came the voice again, a single human voice carried across the stars, calm and certain. "We have returned, and this time we will not be erased." The galaxy trembled with those words, not because of their volume, but because of their truth on the planet below. Riots became full revolutions. Council soldiers abandoned their posts. Civilians cheered as the anthem echoed through their cities. The great empire that had once ruled with unshakable might was crumbling before the will of one warship, and the humans it carried. The chamber fell into silence, not from peace but from despair. The leaders knew their time was ending. Above their world, the human ship hung like a dark crown, its guns pointed downward, its fighters circling like blades, its survivors awakening fully from their long sleep, their voices growing stronger, their song louder. Humanity was no longer a ghost, no longer a memory, no longer a warning, it was a storm. And as the first human commander spoke once more, his voice cold with promise, the stars themselves seemed to bend. We are back, and this time, we decide the future. The chamber broke into chaos, but it was too late. The fire had already spread, the galaxy had already changed. And in the shadow of the Iron Requiem, the age of humanity began again. The chamber of the council was silent, but the silence was heavy and dangerous. Dark shadows moved across the walls as alien delegates whispered in secret. They were the oldest powers of the galaxy, rulers for thousands of years, and tonight they spoke of only one thing: humanity. Some voices were calm, others sharp and fearful. "They grow too fast," one alien said, his eyes glowing in the dim light. "In only 3 centuries they have built fleets that rival ours," another voice hissed back. "If we wait longer, they will be stronger than us all." The decision was not spoken with honor, not with courage, it was whispered with fear. The council signed a secret order. The treaties with Earth meant nothing now. Human colonies would burn, and no one outside the chamber would ever know the truth. Far away in the deep stars, the first strike came. The colony of Ralos 9 was peaceful that night. Children played under artificial skies. Families lived their quiet lives. They never expected war, not from the council that had promised peace. But then the sky tore open. Alien warships appeared without warning, their weapons glowing bright. The colony's defense grid tried to fight, but it was old and weak. The aliens fired with no mercy. Buildings fell, streets broke apart, fire rose into the sky. People screamed as shuttles tried to flee. But the enemy hunted them down. Every signal for help was jammed. Every cry blocked by council hands. The galaxy would hear nothing of this. Nothing but silence among the smoke and broken steel. A young officer named Mara crawled out from the ruins of the command center. Her face was burned, her voice broken, but she carried a small recorder. She saw what was done to her people. She watched her friends die, and she swore the truth would not be buried. Her hands shaking, she sent a final burst signal into the void. A signal too small to stop. Too small for the council to block, it carried her words. "They came without warning, they killed us all. Remember us." Then her recorder went silent, her body lost under falling steel, back in the council chamber. The delegates sat in silence again. Reports of the attack reached them, and one alien smiled with cold triumph. "Good," he said. "Humanity will fear us again. They will remember their place." But others were uneasy. They knew the humans had changed. One whispered, "What if they fight back?" The chamber laughed, cruel and confident. "They are children with toys," the leader said. "We are the law of the galaxy, on Earth." The stars were quiet, but then the signal arrived. A weak broken message carried by smugglers across hidden channels. The recording played in a dark war room where generals and admirals sat in silence. They watched the broken images of Ralos 9, burning cities, dead families, alien fleets firing on civilians. The room grew colder. Every officer staring at the screen. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, an old admiral whispered, "So this is the council's peace." The others clenched their fists, their faces pale. They all knew the council had crossed the line. The news spread across Earth like fire. People filled the streets, mourning the dead, shouting for justice. Images of burning colonies were shown on every screen. Every channel, no one could ignore it. No one could forgive it. The council thought the humans would bow their heads. But instead, humanity lifted its eyes with fury. Families lit candles for the lost, and soldiers sharpened their blades. Factories began to work day and night, building warships faster than ever before. Young men and women rushed to enlist, swearing oaths to fight. The cry was the same across every nation. "We will not forgive. We will not forget." In the shadows of Earth's fleet command, a man named Admiral Kalen stood watching the stars. His eyes were calm, but inside him burned the same wrath as the people. He spoke softly to the officers beside him. "They believe we are weak," he said. "They believe we will bow." He turned toward the war table, maps of stars glowing before him. "Let them believe it. Let them laugh," he said, "but when we strike, they will never laugh again." The council thought the humans were prey. The council thought humanity would cry and beg, but humanity had been wounded, and wounds made them dangerous. The galaxy did not yet know, but the answer was already coming. An answer of fire, an answer of steel, an answer that would shake the stars. The Council crossed the line, and humanity would answer with pure wrath. The recording spread like a ghost through the stars. It was not meant to survive. Yet it did, a broken voice, trembling with pain, carried the truth of Ralos 9. It crossed smuggler channels, pirate relays, even black market traders. It slipped through places the Council did not watch, and it reached Earth. That was the moment silence ended. In the war room, the leaders of humanity listened. Mara's words echoed. They came without warning, they killed us all. Remember us. The screen showed burning streets, falling towers, ships of alien design firing on helpless people. For a long time, no one in the room moved. Then the silence broke, but not with fear, with rage. The Admiral stood, his hand pressed on the table of stars. This is not war, he said, his voice low and sharp. This is murder. Generals whispered about strategy. Politicians spoke of treaties, but the people outside already knew. The Council had betrayed them. There was no going back. On the streets of Earth, grief turned into anger. In the cities, giant screens played the last images of the colony. Children crying, families running, fire falling from the sky. Crowds filled the roads, shouting the same words again and again, never again, never again. Mothers held up the pictures of their dead, fathers raised fists, soldiers stood among them in silence. The sorrow was deep, but the wrath was deeper. Factories roared to life. Engines screamed as new warships were built at a speed no alien could believe. Steel plates hammered into place, cannons raised. Engines tested until sparks lit the air. Human engineers worked without sleep, their hands bleeding but their eyes bright. Every ship that left the dockyard carried a name of the lost. The Council thought humanity would beg for peace, but humanity was preparing for war. Still in the high halls of government, there was debate. One senator said, "We must not act, the Council is too strong." "Their fleets are endless," another shouted. "If we wait, they will kill again. How many more must die before we move?" The chamber broke into chaos, voices clashing like blades. But among them all, one voice rose clear. Admiral Kalen stood tall, his uniform dark, his eyes steady. "The Council believes they have ended us," he said. "But they have awakened something greater." He pointed to the stars burning on the map before them. "From this day forward, we fight not for survival, but for vengeance across the colonies." The news spread like fire. On Mars, miners dropped their tools and enlisted. On the moons of Jupiter, shipyards doubled their output. On the ice stations of Europa, men and women trained in the frozen dark. Everywhere the call was the same: fight back. No one forgot Mara's last words. Her broken voice became a battle cry, a whisper that turned into a storm. But still, humanity was divided. Some leaders feared what war would bring. They spoke of the Council's endless armies, their ancient fleets, their thousands of worlds. How can we fight such power? They asked. Others answered with fire in their eyes. We fight because we must. We fight because we are human. The debate never ended. But outside the halls, the decision had already been made. In the darkness of space, small fleets began to gather. Stealth ships painted black, their engines silent. They moved like hunters, unseen. Waiting for the order, pilots sat in silence, their helmets on, their faces hard. Some kissed the charms of their families. Some prayed, others simply waited. The war had not yet begun, but the first knives were already drawn. Meanwhile, the Council met in their grand chamber again. Reports of human unrest reached them. Some were worried, but most only laughed. "They rage, but they will fall," said one delegate. "They cannot match us," another added. "They will break as all the others have." They still thought of humans as children. They still believed humanity was weak. But none of them had ever faced the wrath of an entire world united. Back on Earth, Admiral Kalen looked at the fleet rising into the sky. New warships. Their hulls still glowing from the heat of construction. Fighters launched in swarms. Their engines screaming like wolves, he watched them go. His hands behind his back, his voice quiet. "They think this is the end of us," he whispered. "But it is only the beginning." For humanity was no longer waiting. It was no longer pleading. The Council had spilled innocent blood, and humanity would answer, not with words, not with peace, but with war. The galaxy did not yet see the storm coming. The Council thought they had silenced one colony, but what they had truly done was awaken all of Earth. 1 billion hearts burned with one fire. A billion voices spoke the same vow: you crossed the line. Now we will cross it back. The galaxy thought humanity would wait. But humanity did not wait. They did not send warnings. They did not send declarations. Instead, they moved in silence. Small fleets left the shipyards of Earth and Mars, not in the bright light of ceremony, but in the cold shadows of night. Their hulls were black, their engines hidden, their signals masked. The Council's spies watched the skies, but they saw nothing. Humanity had vanished into the dark. Out beyond the safe trade routes, alien convoys moved without fear. They carried fuel, weapons, and supplies to the Council's border fleets. The escorts laughed at the idea of human attack. Humans are loud, one alien captain said. They cannot hide. They cannot strike. But then the stars went dark. Sensors flickered, comms died, and the silence came. The convoy tried to call for help, but their voices went nowhere. A shadow passed above them. A shape too fast, too sharp. The first blast came from nowhere. An escort ship split in half, fire spilling into space. Before the others could even move, two more vanished in sudden bursts of flame. The alien captain screamed orders, but it was useless. The attackers moved like ghosts, ships sliding in and out of sight. Every time the convoy fired, they hit nothing but empty dark. The human strike craft were there 1 second and gone the next. The aliens did not even see their faces, only the wrath of their guns within minutes. The convoy was ash and wreckage, drifting in silence. One small beacon remained. A message left behind. The words were clear, carved into the static. For Ralos 9, more convoys fell in the same way. In one sector, 3 fleets vanished in a single week. Whispers spread across the Council worlds. Merchants refused to travel, soldiers refused to guard. They spoke of ghosts in the dark, human ships that struck and disappeared. The Council dismissed the rumors, but fear spread faster than orders. In the hidden bases of humanity, the pilots returned. Their ships scorched, their eyes sharp, their hearts heavier than steel. They did not cheer, they did not smile. They sat in silence, remembering the faces of Ralos 9. Every mission was not just war, it was justice. They knew the Council would soon take notice, and they wanted the Council to notice in the war room. Admiral Kalen watched the reports. He did not celebrate the victories, he studied them. His hand traced the stars on the map, his mind moving faster than any machine. Strike their veins, he whispered. Cut off their blood before we cut out their heart. His officers nodded, their eyes grim. The plan was not survival. It was punishment on a Council world called Zorath. A meeting was called. Alien commanders sat around a glowing table, their faces pale with unease. Our convoys vanish, one said. Our fleets starve, another hissed. The humans are behind this. They hunt us. The room filled with anger and denial. They are weak, shouted one delegate. They do not have such power. But then a quiet voice cut through them all. What if they do? The question hung in the air like a blade because deep inside, even the most arrogant Council leaders feared it was true. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Council felt hunted. Meanwhile, in the dark between stars, a small human fleet prepared for another strike. The pilots sat in their cockpits, helmets on, comms silent. Their leader, Captain Lyra, looked at her squadron and raised her hand. Her voice was steady, though her heart carried the weight of many losses. Tonight we are shadows, she said. Tonight we are knives. She lowered her hand, and the ship slid forward, engines whispering like wolves in the night. They attacked a refueling station hidden on the edge of Council space. The aliens never saw them coming. Explosions ripped through the station, fuel tanks bursting like suns. The blast lit up the dark for miles. The humans vanished again before the Council fleets could respond. When reinforcements arrived, they found nothing but wreckage and silence, and a single message burned into the remains. We remember. Word spread faster now. Alien merchants refused to travel. Their ships stayed grounded. Council soldiers whispered of curses and shadows. Children on alien worlds woke screaming of human warships in the night. The Council had tried to bury the truth, but the truth was alive. Humanity was no longer prey. Humanity was the hunter. On Earth, the people listened to the news with fierce pride. Mothers spoke of their sons and daughters in the fleet. Children pointed at the stars and whispered of ghost ships. The sorrow of Ralos 9 had turned into a storm, and that storm grew with every strike. Admiral Kalen stood once more in his war room. The reports of victories filled the air. But his face was not smiling. "This is only the beginning," he said, his voice like stone. "They believe we strike from anger, but soon we will strike with wrath." He pointed to the star map, the council's capital glowing red. "Let them feel hunted now, for soon we will come for their throne." The galaxy shivered in silence. The council thought they ruled with fear, but now fear had a new master, and its name was humanity. The stars above the world of Thalor were calm, calm until the sky broke open. From the void came ships of steel and fire, human warships, their engines burning bright. The council had said it could not happen, that humanity was too weak, too scattered, but here they were, an entire fleet, rising from the dark like wolves smelling blood. The council garrison on Thalor laughed when the alarms first rang. "Humans cannot face us in open battle," said the alien commander, his voice full of scorn. He ordered his ships to form ranks, long lines of shining warcruisers. Their weapons glowing, he expected the humans to run, to scatter like frightened children. But the humans did not run, they advanced. The first volley tore through space. Alien beams cut across the black. Slashing at human shields, the void exploded with light. For a moment it looked as if the council would hold, but then the humans answered. Missiles streaked forward, hundreds, thousands, weaving between the beams of energy. Alien ships fired to stop them, but too many slipped through. The sky lit with fire as 3 cruisers vanished in bursts of flame. Admiral Kalen stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Resolve, his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes steady. "Hold formation," he said calmly. "Make them bleed for every breath they take." The human fleet moved as one, not scattered, not desperate. Every ship fought with precision, every strike coordinated. This was not chaos, this was wrath sharpened into a blade. The council commander screamed for his ships to press forward. They obeyed, charging in a wall of fire. But the humans did not meet them head-on instead. The fleet split apart like a pack of predators. Frigates darted through the gaps, fast and sharp. Destroyers weaved between enemy lines, cutting supply ships, crippling engines. The aliens did not understand. They had never faced prey that fought like hunters. On the bridge of one human destroyer, Captain Lyra shouted orders, "Target their fuel lines." She cried, "Cut their breath before we cut their throats." Her ship slid past a massive council cruiser, dodging beams by inches. Her crew unleashed a storm of torpedoes that slammed into the cruiser's heart. The alien ship erupted, a ball of light that cast shadows across her face. Her crew cheered, but Lyra only whispered. For Raylos 9, the council fleet tried to regroup. They formed a circle, a shield wall of steel. Their ships pressing close, it was their oldest tactic, one that had broken 100 rebellions. But the humans did not care for old tactics. They swarmed like wolves, attacking from every angle. They struck from above, from below. Slipping between the cracks, every opening was a wound. And every wound bled fire on the planet below. The people of Thalor watched in terror. From their cities they looked to the night sky. They saw explosions, burning trails, ships falling like meteors. The council had always promised them safety, promised that no power could ever challenge them. Now they watched those promises burn back in the council chamber. Reports came flooding in. Screens showed the battle. Human ships carving through fleets that had once ruled the galaxy. The delegates argued in panic. "This cannot be." One shouted, "They are only humans." But another voice cut through, trembling. "They are not prey anymore." In orbit above Thalor, the battle reached its height. Admiral Kalen gave the order, his voice steady as stone. "All guns full fire." The human dreadnoughts roared, their cannons spitting fire that tore through the last line of council defense. One by one, the alien ships fell, burning wrecks tumbling into the void. When silence finally came, the council fleet was gone. Only wreckage and flame remained. Drifting among the stars, the humans had lost ships too. Some burned quietly, their crews gone, but each loss was remembered. Each name carved into the hearts of the survivors. For every human ship destroyed, 10 council ships had fallen. The cost was heavy, but the message was clear. The council was no longer untouchable. On the bridge of the Iron Resolve, Admiral Kalen looked out at the wreckage. His officers waited for him to speak. He let the silence hold for a moment, the fire of dead ships burning in his eyes. Then he said, "This is only the beginning." His voice was calm, but every officer felt the weight of his words. This world was their fortress, and we have shattered it. For every colony they burned, we will burn 10 of theirs. The news of Thalor's fall spread like a storm. Across the galaxy, people whispered of the human fleet. They spoke of ships that did not run, of captains that fought like wolves. Some called it madness, others called it justice. But all agreed on one thing. The Council had awakened something they could not control. The Council had spilled human blood, and now humanity spilled theirs. The galaxy would never again look at Earth and see weakness. They would look and see fire, they would look and see wrath. The council chamber was not silent anymore. Once it had been a place of order, where ancient voices spoke with calm arrogance, but now the walls echoed with panic, with fear, with rage. Delegates from 100 species shouted over one another, their voices sharp and desperate. The great table of light flickered with reports from the battle at Thalor. Every line was the same: human victory, council defeat. An insectoid delegate slammed its claws against the table, sparks flying. They were supposed to be weak, it screeched. Prey does not hunt the predator. A scaled alien hissed in response, and yet they do. They hunt us like wolves. They strike with no fear. Others joined in, voices shaking. They destroyed our fleets. They cut through our ships like fire through paper. If they come here, none of us are safe. At the center of the chamber, the high speaker of the council rose, her long robes shimmered in the artificial light, her face cold, but her hands trembling. Enough, she roared, her voice amplified by the hall systems. The chamber grew quiet, but it was a fearful quiet. She looked at the gathered species, her eyes burning. Humanity is dangerous, yes, but we are the council. We are the rulers of this galaxy. Her words rang hollow because outside the chamber, the galaxy already whispered something different. On the trade routes, alien merchants refused to fly on council worlds. Children woke from dreams of human fleets burning the skies. Even soldiers who had once laughed at humanity now watched the stars with unease. The council's power was breaking, not just in battle, but in belief. For the first time in centuries, the people doubted their masters. One delegate leaned forward, his eyes narrow. "We cannot fight them alone," he said, his voice low. "We must unite our fleets, call every world to arms," but another shook her head violently. "No," she said, "do you not see? They will only grow stronger the more we fight. Every ship we send becomes another wreck in their fire." The chamber erupted again. Some demanded vengeance, others begged for peace. And then the message came. A single signal cut through the chamber's noise. It was simple, direct, and human. The message flickered on every screen. The voice cold and steady. "You crossed the line. There is no peace." The chamber fell into silence again. Every delegate stared at the screen, and in that silence, the council realized humanity was not asking for peace. Humanity was declaring war. On Earth, the people watched the message spread across alien networks. They watched as their words echoed in the hearts of enemies and allies alike. Factories roared louder, fleets grew larger. But more than weapons, humanity had gained something else. They had gained fear. The council had ruled with it for centuries. Now humanity wielded it like a blade. In the council chamber, factions began to form. One group demanded immediate surrender. "They will destroy us if we continue," they cried. "We must kneel before their fire consumes us all." Another group snarled back. "Surrender to prey? Never. We will exterminate them even if it costs us our blood." The chamber was no longer united. It was broken, torn between fear and pride. And in that fracture, humanity saw opportunity. Admiral Kalen studied the council's turmoil from afar. Reports from spies and intercepted signals played before him. He listened, silent, his hands behind his back. "They argue," he said at last, his voice low. "They tear themselves apart while we sharpen our blades." His officers looked at him, their faces hard with resolve. "What is our next move, Admiral?" One asked, Kalen's eyes fixed on the star map, where the council capital glowed red. "We strike at their heart," he said, "and when we do, the galaxy will see the council bleed." Meanwhile, on distant council worlds, ordinary citizens began to whisper. They had always feared the council more than the stars, but now they feared humanity more than the council. And in that fear, some began to wonder, perhaps the humans were not the enemy. Perhaps they were the future back in the chamber. The high speaker struggled to hold control. Her voice thundered, but her eyes betrayed her dread. She tried to remind them of their power, their fleets, their history, but history meant nothing now, because in every mind was the same vision: human warships tearing through the void. Unstoppable, unbroken, the council had thought themselves eternal. But now eternity cracked in the shadows of the chamber. One quiet delegate whispered a truth no one wanted to hear. "The humans are not just fighting for revenge," he said softly. "They are fighting to replace us." The words chilled the room, because deep down everyone knew he was right. Far away in the dark of space, human fleets gathered, dreadnoughts larger than anything the Council had faced, fighters swarming like locusts, stealth ships sliding silently through the void. Every ship carried a name of the lost. Every pilot carried a vow. They did not fight only for Ralos 9. They fought for the future, and so the Council trembled. For the first time in its long reign, it was not laughing, not mocking, it was afraid. Because it had broken humanity, and now humanity had come to break it. The Council's capital was called Valar. For thousands of years it had stood as a symbol of control, a shining fortress at the center of the galaxy. Its rings of defense stretched wider than moons. Fleets of warships patrolled its skies. Every child in the galaxy was told the same story. No enemy could ever breach Valar. But that was before humanity. The first warning came like thunder. Sensors screamed as human fleets tore from hyperspace. Wave after wave of steel and fire, the sky lit up with the arrival of dreadnoughts, their hulls carved with scars of old battles. Behind them came destroyers, frigates, and carriers filled with swarming fighters. At the front of it all was the Iron Resolve, Admiral Kaelin's flagship, engines burning bright, guns locked on the heart of the Council. The Council defenders reacted with panic. Admirals barked orders. Thousands of ships scrambled to meet the human fleet, their formations stretched into walls of steel, their guns glowing with ancient power. "Drive them back," one commander screamed. "This is our throne. This is Valar." But the humans did not fear thrones. They only saw a fortress that needed to fall. The battle began with light. Alien beams streaked through space, slashing at human ships. The void exploded with fire as the first human cruiser fell. But the humans did not slow. Missiles, torpedoes, and railguns answered, tearing holes in the Council's proud lines. Every volley was a reminder. Humanity did not come to survive. Humanity came to conquer on the bridge of the Iron Resolve. Admiral Kaelin stood calm as the storm raged around him. "Break their first wall," he ordered. His voice like steel, human frigates darted forward. Weaving between enemy fire, they targeted the command ships. Ripping through their hulls, Council officers screamed as their ships burned. Their commands silenced in seconds without orders. The first defensive wall collapsed. The humans surged forward. Fighters swarmed from carriers. Black streaks across the stars, they dove into enemy formations. Unleashing fire at point-blank range, alien ships spun and broke, their lines shattered by the chaos. The Council defenders had always relied on fear. But now fear belonged to them. From the surface of Valar, civilians looked up and saw the sky on fire. Great blossoms of light, wreckage falling like burning stars. The ground trembled as defense cannons opened fire, beams of energy shooting into orbit. But even as the cannons roared, human dreadnoughts answered with their own fury. Entire defense towers melted in seconds, their proud walls reduced to ash. On the Council's command station, panic spread. Admirals screamed at each other, their voices breaking. "They strike like savages." One shouted, "No," another whispered, her eyes wide with terror. "They strike like soldiers." The truth was clear. The humans were not prey. They were predators who had learned war from loss. In the middle of the battle, Captain Lyra's destroyer sliced through enemy lines. Her crew fired torpedoes into a heavy cruiser. Tearing it apart, the explosion cast light across her face. "Push forward," she shouted. "We end them here." Her ship was scarred, its shields burning, but it did not stop. None of the human ships stopped, because every one of them carried the memory of Ralos 9. The second defensive wall broke, wreckage filled the void. Burning ships drifted in silence. The Council's proud fleet was crumbling before the eyes of the galaxy. And still the humans pressed forward. Admiral Kaelin raised his hand. "Bring the hammer down," he said. The dreadnoughts shifted into formation, their cannons glowing brighter than suns. Together they fired. The blast ripped through the heart of the Council's fleet. Dozens of ships vanished in a single wave of fire. The defenders broke, scattering into chaos. On Valar's surface, alarms screamed across every city. Citizens ran through the streets, their voices full of terror. The Council had promised them safety, promised that no war would ever touch their world. But now war was above them, crashing down. The sky was no longer a shield, it was a graveyard. In the council chamber itself, the high speaker trembled. Her voice cracked as she demanded reports. Every screen showed the same nightmare. Human ships advancing, alien fleets burning. Delegates screamed in fear. Some fled the chamber, others fell to their knees. The council, once eternal, was breaking. Admiral Kalen's voice cut through the comms, broadcast on every council channel. "You brought this upon yourselves," he said, his words calm, deadly. "You thought us weak, you thought us prey. Now you will learn the cost of crossing humanity." The human fleet broke through the last defenses. They stood over Valar now, their guns aimed at the council's proud capital. The defenders were gone. The skies filled only with wreckage and silence. For the first time in its long history, Valar was vulnerable for the first time. The galaxy's throne was under siege. Humanity had come to the gates of power, and they had set it on fire. The council had lit this war, but humanity would finish it with fire, with steel, with wrath. The battle for Valar was over, but victory did not feel like triumph. The skies above the council capital were still burning, broken ships drifting in silence. Human warships hung in orbit, scarred and battered. Their hulls blackened from fire, but they had won. The council's fleets were gone, their proud walls shattered, their capital left open, and yet the humans did not cheer because victory had come at a terrible cost. On the bridge of the Iron Resolve, Admiral Kalen stood among the quiet. Around him, officers whispered names of the lost. Ships gone, thousands of lives burned into the void. His eyes stayed fixed on the wreckage outside. But in his heart he carried the weight of every soul. "This is the price," he murmured, his voice heavy. "The price of wrath." Reports flowed in from across the fleet. Entire squadrons wiped out, carriers lost with all hands. Messages from captains who had fought until the last round. Their final words sent in fire and static. One crew sang their anthem before their ship exploded. Another whispered the names of their children as they burned. Every loss was felt, every name remembered, and the weight of those sacrifices pressed on all of humanity. On Earth, the news reached the people, screens lit with the images of victory. The fall of the Council's greatest fleet. Crowds roared with pride, their fists raised, but behind the cheers was sorrow. Families watched for the names of their loved ones. Some wept in silence, others shouted their grief at the stars. The cost of vengeance was written in blood. In the council chamber, chaos reigned. Delegates screamed, their faces pale with terror. Some begged for surrender, their voices trembling. "They will destroy us all if we resist," they cried. Others snarled with pride even as their fleets lay in ashes. "Better to die than to kneel to pray," they hissed. But none of their voices carried strength anymore. The galaxy had seen their fall. The council's throne was cracked, its power broken. Admiral Kalen gathered his commanders. They stood in silence around the war table, stars glowing red with battle scars. He looked at each of them, his face stern, his voice low. "We have struck them down, but we are not unbroken," he said. "Our fleets bleed, our worlds mourn. Our people carry grief deeper than steel." He paused, his hands pressing against the table. "But we cannot stop here." The officers nodded, grim and silent. They all knew the truth. If humanity stopped now, the council would rise again, and their dead would have died for nothing. Among the fleet, soldiers sat in their quarters. Some stared at pictures of families they might never see again. Others read the last letters of fallen comrades, their eyes burning but dry. A young pilot whispered to herself, "We won." "But I don't feel like we won." Her wingmate placed a hand on her shoulder, whispering back, "We don't fight to feel better. We fight because we must," on Valar's surface. The civilians watched the human fleet above them. They had been raised to believe the council would protect them, but now their protectors were gone. Some looked at the humans with terror. Others looked with something like hope. For the first time, they wondered if maybe, just maybe, humanity was the future. In the war room of the Iron Resolve, Kalen spoke again. "The council begs for surrender," he said, his voice heavy. "Some call for peace, some call for mercy." His eyes swept across his commanders. "Tell me, do they deserve mercy?" The room was silent. Every officer thought of Ralos 9, of burning colonies, of families slaughtered. Finally, Captain Lyra stepped forward, her voice sharp. "Mercy is for equals," she said. "They showed us none." The room filled with grim murmurs of agreement. The decision was being carved in iron. Yet Kalen's heart weighed heavy. He was not blind to the cost. For every victory, humanity paid with its blood. For every battle won, thousands never returned. The Council had awakened wrath, but wrath demanded sacrifice, and humanity was bleeding for its vengeance. The galaxy watched in silence. On distant worlds, whispers spread like fire. The Council is broken, some said. Humanity rises, others whispered. And in every whisper was the same truth. The age of the Council was ending. The age of humanity had begun. But even as the humans stood in triumph, they stood in sorrow. For the cost of their wrath was heavy, and the war was not yet over. The Council still lived, though broken. And humanity had to choose, would they show mercy, or would they finish what they had begun? The fires of Valar burned bright in the sky, and Admiral Kalen whispered into the silence, "They thought we were prey. They thought we would kneel." His eyes hardened as the stars reflected in them. But mercy is not for tyrants. We will decide their fate, and the galaxy will remember.